Hey everybody, Jose Rodriguez here with Art of Defense. In our second episode, I got the pleasure to sit down with one of my former coaches, Scott McQuary. Not only has this man coached over 1,600 MMA fights, but also holds a black belt in Judo with Kodokan, which, if you don't know, is one of the lineages and directly connected to Kano and his responsible for naming the school, but also he has brown belts in several other martial arts. But as you can see in the photos, he's directly linked. He's coached at The Ultimate Fighter on several occasions, as well as linked with many other former champions. And who wouldn't want to sit down for an hour with their coach and just talk about the old days, the ways, what got him started. Not only has this man actually been a fighter, a coach, but he's going through a personal battle now that he shares with us. And it was really humbling to sit down with him and get to be a part of that. So sit down, relax with us, listen to the conversation. Scott truly is a great human being, and I think that's what this is about.
I mean, there's a theme to it, but it's also to not be so rigid and structured and
it's not
and
scripted,
that sort
but
of
it
thing.
sounds like you're looking at the influence of martial arts as a whole, aside from just the physical aspect. How has it changed you, or how has it formed you as a person in your values and your path in life?
Yeah, I think, I've gotten this nudge. I don't know what your spirituality is and your religion, that sort of thing, but for me, there's definitely a higher power that has been somehow. I just keep getting that, hey, you should do a podcast. Hey, you should do a podcast in some weird way or another, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've done a couple various different things because I'm kind of a jack of all trades rather than a master of any. And so it always keeps coming up, and I'm like, all right, I'll try another one. And I'll do it for 5, 6 episodes, and then I just kind of lose luster because I'm not really doing it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been budged a few times, and so I got the budge again, and the most recent. So I was like, okay, people are like, you really need to do something on martial arts because that's what I've been doing for the last 25 years plus. And or at least consumed my life with the most of it. And I'm like, okay, I looked at what everybody's doing. The biggest thing for the most part is comparing one martial art to the other martial art. And I feel like I have this unique ability to I kind of see similarities to lots of them.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, religion, before I had much of a spiritual way about me, kind of was my religion. As you know, it's very cultish, and
Mm-hmm.
you got certain disciplines saying this is my way, this is the only way to become a true martial artist or whatever, right? And that kind of easily can reflect in parallels with religion and spirituality.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, maybe I'll do that. I know enough martial artists of various different areas and disciplines, and that I'm like, I could bring to the table. Let's talk about martial arts as a whole, because there's part of my spiritual belief. I think we've all been given a purpose. There's a reason why you became a martial artist. Reason I became one, and various other things. And for me, believe it or not, it wasn't to become a fighter as much as it was to bring some unity. I think that's somewhat of my role in this life, and maybe that is to everybody to some degree. But I see there's great. That's why I ended up getting into. I ended up being an MMA fighter because originally I loved boxing, loved wrestling, and it eventually led me to the path. And I think that's kind of that's where everything's headed toward. It all funnels down into that mixed martial arts. And what I find, and I only thought about this recently. I never thought about it when you named it. So I don't know if that was your intentions, but when you change it to one MMA, like the cohesiveness, one, and I don't know where I never actually talked to you about the one, but I was like, for me, it was all very serendipitous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of feel like when I look back at my life, so many things are very serendipitously lined up in a unique format. And so that's kind of what this podcast is. I played with the different names. I come down to, it's the art of the defense. I've written a couple books, the art of mastery, the art of coaching. I was inspired. There's a great book called The Art of Learning. The guy in that book is the Searching for Bobby Fischer kid, the chess master. Yeah. But in his book, he talks about...
I have the book.
Oh, yeah. So you know. I mean... but
I can't remember his name right now, but
right,
I got the book.
He got me to start learning Tai Chi. Because he talked about Tai Chi and the coordinations. And so I just invite, again, the serendipitousness of it all. Had a black belt Tai Chi learning from me. And I didn't even know it at first. He came in. He's very, I think he was personally quiet about it, and then I was like, oh man, you need to teach this, and we started swapping privates.
Yeah, he
got pretty good quick. I got pretty, and I was like, man, there's all these things. This is jiu-jitsu by myself, and so it was awesome. And so I think at the end of the day, I boiled it down for me personally. Martial arts, I early years, very egotistical young man. But I had to fight growing up as a kid, literally, and as well as metaphorically. But then I just became an adult fighting myself. I've looked back now, and I'm like, I was always my biggest adversary. And I think there's a place for martial arts. We're getting into a soft world, in my opinion, right? You can just puff your chest out. I think Kevin Hart has a great joke. He's like, I got one move. This is my fight move. This is my self-defense. It's like, you get past this, I'm done. This is my one move. You ready? What? We got a problem? He's like, they see past that, I'm toast. I don't know how to fight at all. And I'm like, we're approaching a world now that I think that's all. To be honest with you, that's kind of all it takes. If I can build your confidence in whatever art it is, and it might be not that great, but if you'll stand up and you'll just say, hey, I'm not going to take your crap. Most people kind of back off, back down. And that goes a long ways. I still think, there's still we should certainly learn, a good martial art per se, and that's unfortunately doesn't mean maybe there aren't some that are as best, but I've also come to learn situational. So that said, we'll get started. Welcome to the Art of Defense. I'm here with the legendary Scott McQuary, a former coach of mine, and just introduce yourself and start by tell us what was your primary martial art, what got you into it, and maybe why.
Sure. My primary martial art, to begin with, was karate. It went back to, I was born with a congenital birth defect.
Oh, okay.
And I had major heart surgery at age 8.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, it was considered experimental because not too many people had it in the world. And I was stunted growth. But the one thing they told me was, you can't do anything physically exerting. It's going to be too much on you. You can't run. And that was like open season for the kids in school. So they found out, it's like, this kid won't fight back. So I got the shit knocked out of me. But the fear was it was going to reopen a structure in my heart that had been repaired. And after getting beat up for about close to a year on a pretty regular basis, we searched out another opinion. And a doctor was more philosophical about it. He said, you got a choice here. We don't really know what you can take. They're being cautious. And you can live yourself cautiously and be sedentary the rest of your life, or you can defend yourself.
Oh, wow.
And we don't know.
Yeah.
Now, in alignment with this, we moved a lot. I moved 75 times by the time I was 18.
Military or?
Military, numerous different reasons, but I was always the new kid. So
yeah,
I started compensating with, okay, I'm going to start with karate and wrestling. And I wanted to do something to defend myself. And that was a great opening to be able to defend myself and not be picked on so much. And over a while, it became something of, okay, I need to do this. It turned into a passion of like, you know what? I really love doing this, not beating people up, but feeling empowered. So I didn't have to fight all the time because I knew at the end of the day, yes, I could get hurt, but most likely I have the advantage and I'll come out on top. So it gave me the chance to be more compassionate and reasonable to people and say, hey, we don't have to do this. Let's find another avenue. Because fighting to me is the last resort. Because it still never proves who's right or wrong. Right. You know, you may have done something wrong, who knows, but it doesn't prove anything. But it gives you that power to be able to step back and understand things. So after I went through that, I was in high school and I was doing Goju-Ryu and Okinawa karate. Okay. And a really good friend of mine who I met in a math class, we got talking about martial arts. I was a sophomore. And I said, hey, you should come to my karate class. And he goes, really? He goes, well, I do judo. I didn't know it. He was a national champion. Oh, wow. And I said, we made a deal. I'll go to judo if you come to karate. Nice. And that's what we did. Wow. And we did karate for another few years, but I took the love of judo with me. And his father was one of the senseis at the Kodokan Judo, which is one of the original dojos appointed by Kano. Yeah. And I started to learn about not just the art of judo, but the spirituality behind it and the community. Nice. Because there's so much to judo that's more than just throwing people on the ground. Well, this could easily monopolize this whole interview, so I'll try not to allow that to happen. But you know, I reached out to you when I got my black belt a few years ago and asked, hey, I'm ready to go get. I've been missing judo. I loved judo when I trained with you, and you encouraged me to go to Kodokan, and I reached out to them initially, but they are not real good at the emailing and that sort of thing. But eventually, just again serendipitous, it came across my Facebook feed one day, and I remarked on it, and then Rod said, well, you should come check us out. And I said, I've emailed you a couple times. Oh, just come down. You got to see a class. And I've been training there for almost 2 months now. Yeah. And like, I just instantly, like, you know, in my mind, might be a weird metaphor, but salivating. Like, I was like, the tradition of what they were doing and how they were doing it. And I was like, wow. I instantly felt like my school and probably most Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools, I'm like, wow, we have gotten a long ways away from tradition. We're kind of sloppy, you know. This is, man, the everything from the bowing. I mean, every time you walk by a sensei, you got to bow, right? It's not just, hey, what's up? Yeah. Hey, bro. First time. Yeah. Yeah. So I've been very impressed with Rod and I went in there. I was gonna use my crutch of I'm an old man. Yeah. and then I find out how old he is, how old Mark is, and I'm like, middle books. Yeah, I'm like, you guys are studs. I can't say anything. I'm not a fat old man. I'm just fat. I got to get it back into shape. So it's been very inspiring. It's a really cool place to train. And I can relate to your heart condition a little bit. Not so severe, but I was born with a spinal condition that I didn't find out until high school because I fell back on a basketball court and that got it really going. But it's called spondylocentesis, but my vertebrae, my fifth one that connects to my pelvis to the rest of the spine, is not connected. They said I was most likely born that way, but it could have happened just compression at some point. But I would have really bad back spasms. I couldn't even stand up, and it would happen a couple times a year. And I went and seen a doctor for it, and he said, it was a very old doctor. He's pushing retirement. He's like very bleak. He's like, you're done, young man. Don't play football. Don't run, because running would be the only thing that would actually set it off. But I was like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I could lift weights, I could play football, but I couldn't go jogging on the pavement. Sure. But that was the early days when they still taught us run on our heels, heel toe, and it would just aggravate my back. He's like, yep,
go to college, get a desk job, don't do any labor. It's very bleak. But come back and see me in a year and we'll reevaluate. I really struggled with that. And started doing a little bit of investigating, learning a little bit about it. But I came back in a year. I listened to his advice. I kind of took it, started not doing anything. And that doctor had died of old age. Mm-hmm. Had a nice, young, new doctor at school. And he's like, oh no! He's like, if you can do it, do it. He's like, you're going to probably need back surgery. You're going to have to fuse your spine one day, but it might be when you're 35, might be when you're 75. But live it up until then.
Sure.
And then all it's going to do is take the flexion. And that was inspiring. By then I hit freshman in college. I started studying fitness and nutrition, and that just lit a fire under me. I started at that point, started doing jiu-jitsu for the first time, went back to boxing, and I just felt great, and I started understanding the spine, the core, and how it works, and I developed the soft muscle tissue all around my core to support my spine. And then, probably then went on to, just live above average life with my physicality, and at least got a couple professional fights. But that for me, that was all it was about. It was just I just wanted to have that experience.
Yep.
So martial arts, I think, really influenced me in that way too. But how does martial arts fit into your life now, though?
Oh, it fits in so many different ways, and I got some really good examples. For one of the things that I found with martial arts, and it can be any martial art, but for me in particular, judo builds intestinal fortitude, which means that ability to come back. Mm-hmm. And if you think about the most simplistic idea of being thrown on the ground, well, when you fall, you don't just lay there. You get back up.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like life. The other thing is ukemi, which is falling, self-preservation. You learn to take the least amount of impact on vital areas, which is huge. And that can translate to anything in life. If you know something bad is coming, well, you don't hit it head on. You go with it and try to turn it into your advantage.
Sure.
To whatever way you can. You don't hit force against force. And a great example of how that can come into play here was almost 2 weeks ago today. I was at a park with my grandkids. Mm-hmm. My granddaughter was like, hey, let's race. We'll have a sprint race. I'm like, okay, sure. And I'm always up for anything. Mm-hmm. She's 8 years old.
Yeah.
Well, we hit full-on run. She starts getting ahead of me. My ego says, no, you're not. So I hit a full sprint. As soon as I hit the full sprint, I heard the pop in my left hip.
Oh.
And my leg completely went out. Actually, I tore part of my hamstring in a couple different places. My leg went out, but I did a perfect ukemi, rolled through on concrete, fell. I had to wait for a second to be able to get back up. It was so smooth, my grandkids thought I was joking on them. They're like, why are you doing somersaults? You're just being funny. But what a great way to show of something that has become so habitual. I didn't even think about it. It saved me. If I went face first on the concrete, I'd have a different looking face now, much uglier than it is.
Mm-hmm. And how old are you now?
I will be 63 next week.
Yeah, and so you think about the average 63-year-old nowadays that was going to hit the pavement.
Yeah.
Like my wife's a registered nurse, and so I get the joy in the ER. So I get the joy of I always like, you got any good stories? Because I don't have a real job. Mm-hmm. I'm like, how was work? I'm like, no, I want to know. Like, I'm the housewife. Like, I'm a stay-at-home dad, but I'm Mr. Mom. And I'm like, I told her, I'm like, I need to hear these stories. But she's always telling me the vast majority of older people are ending up, it's just silly, falling down. I've seen recent videos. I've thought about even marketing jiu-jitsu a little bit for this. I know a few other black belts that have done it about just learning to fall, right? I think judo has really opened. I've taken some of, man, my triceps hadn't been that sore in a long time because of all the break falls that we had to do in all the different angles. I'm like, there's a couple times, I mean, because they know I'm your former student. I've had two guys come up to Rod and some other guy, I don't remember his name.
Dick Middlebrooks?
Maybe. Older white gentleman.
Yeah.
Big, thick, like, yeah.
That would be Middlebrooks.
Yeah, and so I'm like, man, they're watching me. What did Scott teach this guy? And so I'm trying to like just keep it together and keep going. But they call it a senior class, but they're 20-somethings mostly.
Sure. Yeah.
And what's funny is I'm pretty sure it was my first night, and we get out and we're doing all our bowing to everybody. And there's the guy, I don't remember his name, but he's is it coral belt, white and red?
Yes.
Yes. So that gentleman, he's Toshi. So he's the first guy about to, and he's like, "Don't push so hard." I just laughed. I was like, "Could you tell?" Yeah, I'm sucking air, and they're so fast, and but all that break falling and stuff. Yeah, I mean it's phenomenal. So I mean you already showed you kind of jumping ahead in a couple of my questions, which is great. But, you know, do you find that martial arts has shaped how you handle all the parts of life that work in your relationship and your personal challenges?
Yeah,
right.
I do. A good thing that translates, I think, to that is, for the first part, is discipline. Martial arts gives you a sense of discipline that you can apply to anything else in life, whether it's being to work on time and doing what you need to do. Because how many times are you on the mat doing pulls across the mat and you're like, this sucks. What am I doing? And you don't see the reasoning for it until the end. You're building confidence and discipline in yourself that can apply to many other things. A perfect example for me is about 3 months ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. And one of the things that they came out and told me, because I'm on a cocktail of a lot of different drugs, radiation therapy, is you're going to be extremely tired. You're going to be exhausted, but you have to exercise. We can't emphasize enough that you have to exercise. Yeah. And they told me this because everybody else they'd pretty much dealt with, it's been a really hit and miss thing. They'll exercise for a day and then they won't. And I said, well, I told him, I said, you're dealing with somebody who comes from a background of...
I'm not the average person.
Yeah. I said, this is what I do. And it has helped me so far maintaining that regiment of, you know what, I have to do this. And the motivation is obviously different. Now it's my health, but it would be no different than, hey, I got to go to practice because I want to be better, or I have a tournament coming up, or any type of thing. That discipline in itself is amazing. And avoiding different foods, you know yourself. Dieting, you got to cut weight. Yeah. Well, you have to avoid certain foods. You have to eat clean. I have to eat so clean.
I've almost felt it's been I did an interview podcast with somebody else on theirs the other day, and he used a good analogy I'll use in a different reference though, is it's like the wave coming into the shore and then back out. So man, I had to get super disciplined, very good at it. And then as soon as I retired and just kind of got back to like coaching, boy, I've for the last couple of years, I just like kind of like enjoyed just eating whatever the hell I want, because I didn't have a reason. I no longer, even though I'm a certified collegiate strength and conditioning coach and former trainer and all this, like, I just sometimes I'm like I've just given into like I just want to eat and enjoy life. Is life meant to just be the grind all the time? But now I'm getting back into, okay, I've had too much fun, and I did get wind of your situation. I also a couple years ago, I have a really good friend. One of my friends that I fought with on the first card I ever did before I even met you. We've always just stayed in touch. He eventually joined the military and became a ranger, and I went on to pursue fighting. And he contacted me out of the blue and said, man, I have stage 4 colon cancer.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're younger than me. And started talking. He's like, you really should go get tested. And I'm like, I'm fine. I felt like I'd lived healthy enough for the longest time. And even at that point, I was still in pretty good shape and training. And I know you should do it. And eventually, I'm like, all right, I'll do it. But with the healthcare system, they said, you're too young. I was 44 at the time. Mm-hmm. So I kind of had to tell a white lie. And I was like, well, my brother just contacted me, and he was diagnosed stage 4.
Sure.
You know, spiritually, he's my brother, and okay, well, we can make an exception. Sure enough, 2 cancerous polyps. Mm-hmm. Scared the crap out of me. I started doing research and looking into things, and that honestly is what set me on my spiritual path I have been on for the last year and a half, 2, and discovering a whole new world and life that oddly enough kind of always there. My awareness wasn't to it. And so I get that, and I see that, it might be, I find it very serendipitous that, that we're both dealing with it, or have dealt with it. And because I don't know that it necessarily ever stops being something you have to keep an eye on, but fighting has prepared us to have that fight. And I think you're familiar with this probably, right? Where, jiu-jitsu guys will, I got a couple fights this weekend. And MMA guys will, that's not a fight. Or then you'll get other guys, street fight. I mean, even, I think collie guys and stuff like that will say, oh, that's not a fight. There are rules.
Yeah.
I'm like, and my response was when my student, somebody would give one of my students grief about, you don't have a fight, it's a jiu-jitsu match. I'm like, tell a guy who has cancer he's not fighting. Mm-hmm. Tell somebody who's, given, childbirth, they're not fighting. Like that's, mm-hmm. I'm like, I think we've the ego is that got you, the ego that got me. I think we're constantly battling that, and martial arts is a good way for some of us who have a strong ego. Mm-hmm. I think that's why God put me down that path, was this young buck's got a strong one. Yeah. Because I've had some good hard lessons through you and just through the whole experience of it. You fought, right? You've done some MMA. So looking at how long you've been doing jiu-jitsu, right? Mm-hmm. And karate and judo and Muay Thai, right?
Yes.
Where do you see those arts now versus where they once have come from?
Well, I see, as far as the openness from the purists, people are much more open to letting people train elsewhere, mm-hmm. to explore what they want to do. When I was first coming up, it was very strict. Mm-hmm. You either follow the regime that I have in front of you, and you don't go anywhere else.
This is the way.
This is the only way. Otherwise, you're disrespecting me and you're a traitor.
Sure.
Now, with mixed martial arts being even more popular, people have started to say, it's okay. It's okay mm-hmm. to go somewhere else and train something else. And hence, that's kind of goes full circle back to why I had won MMA. Because at the time, people had to go to many different places to be able to train. Oh, I got to go here to do boxing, go here to do jiu-jitsu. I wanted one place that you go to where you could get everything you needed.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where. I've kind of recently, over the last year, changed my name. I was originally under my black belt professor in jiu-jitsu school, and it was jiu-jitsu. It was and I was starting to kind of see that and change. I had a black belt and several black belts in Taekwondo training with me. I have a Kempo 10th Dan training with me. I have a Tai Chi black belt training with me. You know, and I have guys like Dylan training with me, who brought his child to start with me, and I'm like, I was just feeling very like, man, this is what it's about. We should be, impact, martial arts, and and so I had a conversation, and it was very good. It wasn't a lot of push pull. It was like, you know what? He's like, I'm about jiu-jitsu. That's what I built that's my brand. Mm-hmm. And it made sense. He's done very well with it.
Sure.
And I said, okay, I have to, so I talked to my wife and I considered and I thought about it and I was like, I'm just more than that though. I said, I feel that you need a grappling game and you need a striking game, and there's not one solid martial arts, if I just had to pick one, is well rounded in them all. Mm-hmm. And so I always felt like in all my experience, even being a boxer and a wrestler, and then with my Muay Thai and my Judo and my Jiu-Jitsu, I'm like, if I had to pick more than one, I would pick at least Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. Mm-hmm. And I think Judo and Jiu-Jitsu are just so too close to, like, I just say Jiu-Jitsu. I don't even say Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I'm like, they almost need to come back together. And so I just decided to go my own way and pick my own name. And he was Chem was very understanding of it. And so, I get it. That's fine. Mm-hmm. And I even had a couple other friends and former, teammates that were like, man, I think you're watering it down. So and he's like, I'm not going to send people. I wouldn't refer anybody to you if you're teaching karate and you're teaching up some of these other, Tai Chi and all these other things. And I'm like, well, that's too bad. But
yeah.
I had to kind of go that way. And so where do you see martial arts going now? Because I know everybody's really, that's one of the hot topics is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu getting watered down.
Yeah.
Right? Or what? And what about these other martial arts? Because have they become watered down? Or is that just a perception?
Well, I think there's a lot of validity in your perception because of the monetary gain that people get. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has become a huge moneymaker. And just like, the path of Taekwondo, where they discovered, hey, I can charge for every belt, I can charge for, any kind of promotion, every stripe you get. I've heard now they're even, what are they calling it, an honor fee that they want people to pay like twice a year. Just another fee to add on to be part of the organization. It's a money gain. And
I think I've heard that. I don't remember the name of the black belt, but it's somebody who's, deep black belt, but was like, if you're going to be a part, it's like starting an association. Mm-hmm. And you got to have a membership of that association.
Sure.
No matter where you go.
Right. Yeah. Right. And that also goes in line with, well, now instructors are saying, well, if you start at my club, you're going to start at a white belt. Because, and the reality is you still have the same skills. They could say, hey, I'm going to assess you and see where you would fit in.
Right.
No, in my eyes, they want you to pay for every promotion and pay those dues continuously. Yeah. So you can say, well, I'm part of them now. Yeah, that's bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I recently I wrote a short book. It's like 50 pages. And it's really on the concept of that how, commercialism has really been to the detriment. And I get it because I got to make a living, right?
Sure.
I'm lucky that my wife has a good paying job that I don't have to make a good living, but I see that at least how a lot of other martial artists and instructors have to make a living to at least keep the doors open for sure and deal with things. When I opened my school, it was right during COVID, and man, that just about killed me. And a lot of times, and I was lucky at first because within 30 miles I didn't have another school, sure. So I didn't have to spend a lot of money advertising. I just walked to town, give out flyers, say I'm in town, and people came. Now I got a couple of schools within a decent distance, and so I have to, okay, well, what are they doing?
Right.
What am I, and do I want to compromise what I believe's best, right? Because there's a difference in one's got a brown belt that owns it and a very absentee black belt, and then and then there's another guy who opened as a brown belt but just got his black belt, but from somebody nobody really's ever heard of, kind of thing.
Right.
And and so do I need, like we all know that you can go to certain schools, people seem to get to their belts a little bit faster.
Well, sure.
And that sort of thing. Or I've gone to competitions where I'm like, you're the same belt as me? Yeah. That was kind of quick, or yeah. There's a difference. So the commercialism is definitely struggling. I don't know how much time you spend in some of those other martial arts or experience with others, but would you compare it? I want you to compare. What I really want to do is not compare other martial arts to other martial arts. I want to compare martial arts of today, whether it's Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, Taekwondo, Karate, or whatever, to its roots. Would you say it's as good, better, or has it lost something?
Well, I can take it from the format of the original intent. And what I love about Judo is the original intent that Judo was brought about was to bring the world together. It was made, Jigoro Kano brought something out of numerous styles of jiu-jitsu that he said, the country of Japan needs to offer something of value. And this is something we can offer, and everybody can do it. And that's where it kind of turned into somewhat of a sport, but it really was just supposed to be building intestinal fortitude, strong people with strong minds, and something that you can go anywhere and do. That's why when you go to a judo dojo, they teach in Japanese. And you learn just enough.
That's been my hardest part. I went there and I said, look, I've trained under Scott, but I'm going to tell you right now, I know lots of it, but and I've even taken Japanese in high school. Yeah. I said, but that's the part I could probably show you 5 different throws, but I can't tell you what they're called.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the idea back then was, if you go to Russia, which I've not been to Russia, but I've been to many other different countries and stepped into a judo dojo, I can participate. I know what they say. They're going, okay, sorry, komagosh, and all of a sudden you can be part of the community. Yeah. And there's that part of that acceptance there. And then if you look at a couple of the basic mantras that judo has, which play to life so well, which is giving way to resistance. You don't meet anything head on. You turn their offense into your defense.
Yeah. Well, I love that, and you really bring up a point that, in a positive way, that I haven't heard before about judo's purpose of bringing the world together, and that in a combination of, because we all have heard the term McDojo. Sure. Right, and in a bad way, it's a black eye if you being considered a McDojo, but from a business person who understands McDonald's and what they were trying to do, is you could go to McDonald's in Oregon, California, New York, and order a Big Mac, and you're going to get the Big Mac. It's going to be the same. And that was, so it wasn't necessarily meant to water it down, even though that now it's kind of stapled. But I love the fact that, because we know I can go to different jiu-jitsu schools and I'm not getting the same thing.
Sure.
Right? Let's throw in, no bad rep to 10th Planet, but man, their names versus even, and then you've got traditionalists, some of the guys trying to bring back, some of the Japanese terminologies into jiu-jitsu, and then you've got wrestling and sambo throwing their names in.
Sure.
Man, yeah, it slows me down in class sometimes. Like, I was just teaching today the hip bump sweep or the sit-up sweep. Same move, right? And I know there's a Japanese term for it, but I don't remember.
A very good person who still emphasizes the Japanese name of things is Danaher.
Yes.
And
yes.
you don't find that too often anymore.
Yeah. Well, but what it's nice, what I liked about, since I've been back to judo, is realizing there's a reason. There's a reason. And I do remember you teaching this. I just don't remember it. I didn't retain it well enough. I was too young or arrogant or whatever. But understanding that each word reference is a specific part of the body and or what you're doing with it, rather than, this is the dead orchard, this is the soul stealer, this that was, it helped to remember, but you couldn't relate. Oh, it's inside foot reap, outside hip throw, all of those things, and I think that's lost, and it kind of leads me to my next thing of, so as a spiritual man, I'm a big fan of the word, right? The beginning of the Bible, it says, in the beginning there was the word. So I rarely get much past that for people. And I'm like, I look at the word of things. And one thing is, judo and jiu-jitsu both translate very similar. Jiu-jitsu, gentle skill. Some people will say gentle art, but I go with gentle skill. And then judo is the gentle way. And I'm like, I tell all my students, the goal is to be gentle. And when you roll with me, I can be pretty gentle, but you don't even know how to swim. And if I dropped you in the English Channel, it's not going to look gentle at all.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to learn to calm yourself and relax. Right. So I really try to emphasize that. But that leads me to my next question. And you don't have to talk on your spirituality or religion, but do you see a connection between the two?
Absolutely.
And what is that for you?
The connection for me, because I consider myself a man of God, but I'm also a Buddhist in both respects. They are a gentle way to look at things, but also not concerning myself with the things that are out of my control. And it helps me to keep calm in times of stress. A great example of this is back in 2012. I had a stroke on the mats in a jiu-jitsu class. I don't know if you were there or not.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, you couldn't drive anywhere, and yeah.
Well, the point being to it, luckily I had Paige, who was a paramedic right there at that time. She identified it, but I had to remain calm. It was beyond my control.
Yeah.
God was in control of that.
Yeah.
If I'd panicked or anything else, who knows how much worse things would have gotten. But it allowed me to have the discipline and relinquish the need to try to control something going on outside of myself. Hence, like cancer right now, I'll do everything in my power, which most important thing is my positive attitude. But there's some things I just can't control.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that within that, I'm not, this might ruffle feathers of some people, but I personally believe Jesus was a Buddhist. I think there's been a lot lost to translation, but to say I'm a judoka doesn't take away from me being a jiu-jitsu guy or being a boxer or a wrestler. Some people say, oh, you can't be one, or it isn't the only way, right? And my spirituality at first started from, I was Catholic born and raised, but as a teenager fell away. My favorite joke is, once I learned masturbation was a sin, I said, it's not going to work out for me. But I was borderline. My wife would introduce me as an atheist when we started these conversations sometimes. And after the scare of cancer and I looking into things and healing modalities and stuff, I found ayahuasca. Which then also led me to find other plant medicines like bufo olivaris, which is DMT, MEO, and it's like 5 times stronger than ayahuasca. But I first went to the ayahuasca thing, and it was kind of okay. I was really skeptical. I just wasn't open-minded enough. I saw some magic, but it was enough the shaman was like, you need to come for a bufo session. And so I came, and boy, I'm going to tell you, I had never heard the word of God like I did. Like, I had my little session. I recorded it so I could verify everything after the fact because I wasn't too sure still. And for about 7-8 minutes, I couldn't move. Tried. I'm strong. I was just locked up. And there was a voice says right now, you're not in control, Jose. Accept it, and it will give you some control. You're around people that love you. It's time for you to love yourself. Because I went to that, and they give you heads up. Come knowing what you're going to ask the divine for something. And I was like, it boiled down to, I'd up to it, and I told Sean, I'm like, I want discipline. I'd lost that. I used to be fit and healthy. I could, I've cut weight like nobody's business, like a true professional fighter, and I couldn't do that. I couldn't even fast for a day anymore. I was like, oh, this sucks. Hate sitting in the sun, hate sitting in the hot tub, all those things. I'm like, God. And so I wanted that back. Yeah. And that's when God explained to me discipline is self-love. And man, I've gone to multiple ceremonies since, ayahuasca, some psilocybin. And some people will be like, oh, man, that's voodoo, that's black. I'm like, I'm gonna tell you right now, I believe in God like I never had before in my life. And it's unreal. But one of the things it's taught me is that everything happens for a reason, and there's a plan greater than me. Even before that though, I always felt martial arts gave me something to believe in. But I come to realize it's because I wasn't believing in myself.
Sure.
And I think that's the two things is we gotta believe in ourselves, but we gotta believe in the man upstairs. There's a reason it's called history, because it's not our story, it's his story.
Yes.
But I think, as you know, as a father, you want your children to write their own story eventually. But they gotta learn from yours. They gotta learn from your mistakes and that sort of thing. And so it's definitely caused me a lot of humbleness and that sort of thing.
Well, let me just throw in real quick, Jose, when you talk about spirituality and things, part of the belief I have comes from the idea that God does not exist. And with that being said, anything that exists is finite. And anything that's finite has a beginning and an end. And in my mind, God can't have a beginning or an end. He's infinite. And anything that's infinite doesn't necessarily exist. It just is.
Yeah. Well, and on one of my spiritual journeys, I get these downloads. I don't hallucinate for nothing. Like everybody talks about it. I get this voice. And what has been explained to me is we're God. God is all. Everything and all things. That's infinite, right? He is the beginning and the end. He's the Alpha and the Omega. But I use the analogy of like a hand, the hand of God. We've all heard that, right? They got Coach Scott McQuary. They got Jose Rodriguez. They got Chelsana. They got all these other people. They have a purpose, right? They are attached. They are a part of the hand. So you and I are children of God. We are part of God. But like a father, he's living through us, like experiencing all that is. And you can't necessarily do wrong in the Father's eyes completely, right? You're gonna make mistakes, but as long as he's gonna let you up. I believe in reincarnation. He's gonna let you. Man, you live this life. You did great. You did okay. You took care of the car I bought you, this vessel. Now I'm gonna upgrade you. Or man, you didn't. We're gonna put you back in this one, right? Because and there's so much more to it. But I think God created martial arts for many of us that struggle with the ego. And but that ego, what is that ego? That ego is that I, that self, that identity that we created because of those outside forces that threaten us. So we had to identify, we had to create some, who am I? Or I was going to get picked on, I was going to get bullied and that sort of thing. So I agree with you. I think it's so complex that it's really hard for our little human brains. Like we're the like at best I'm a gut bond. I like to think of it as I'm a micro little bacteria in the gut of Mother Earth. And if there's enough good ones of us, mom's happy. Her stomach is good, right? If there's enough bad, right, then there starts to be problems and that sort of thing. And I'm like the microcosm, but I affect the macro, right? I can influence you, right? I can shed the light, come to you, and if I believe in God, but I am good, I can show you God is good, and then you can do the same thing. Sure. But you know, but same thing with like martial arts, right? So somebody could have went to a bad judo instructor. Sure. We've heard the instructor that has still too much ego, and they hurt somebody, right? And then you're like, I don't want anything to do with that guy. Sure. Right? Or that art, but really that art, right? That art becomes a reflection.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and bringing this full circle, martial arts helps to give you the capacity to understand free will.
Yes.
And with that being said, you are personally empowered, whether you're in practice or on the street, of the responsibility of what you can do.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that every martial artist wins every fight. Like I said, somebody's always going to get hurt.
Yeah.
But you take more compassionate look at people and training partners when you do martial arts because you understand things. You've been in uncomfortable situations. You've put people in uncomfortable situations. You know what it's like.
Yeah.
And you also practice not just advocating judo, but a hapa no kappa, which is the part of resuscitation. And very important.
Yeah.
Very few martial arts practice anything like that.
Yeah.
And going back to the purity of judo, and you talk about the commercialization, you will probably find less than 1% of any judo instructors who are ever paid. They make no money. The money that comes in simply keeps the heat on and the doors open.
Yeah.
Everybody who goes there and has gone there, like you talk of Rod Conregas, Mark Hirota, Middlebrooks, those guys have been doing that, and I've been doing that with them for so many years, however many nights a week, and Saturdays, tournaments, because the love of helping people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Helping people become better people.
Yeah.
And there is a kind of a purity to that, which I appreciate that. Now, did I break away and do my own thing, even at them saying, don't go somewhere else? Yeah, I did, because I felt a passion to, and I felt a calling from God to say, you know what, experience it. And I am a martial arts geek. Yeah. I love everything. I love Muay Thai, Karate, Kali, Pinchak Silat. I love it all.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of fits in recently with, like, I pray and I meditate on a regular basis. And I see, for me, prayer is talking to God, telling him I'm grateful, maybe asking for some help. But meditating is, all right, Dad, I've come to you. I've asked for some money. I've asked for some assistance. But I'm going to sit with you and gain your wisdom. I'm going to listen to you for a little bit. And that's usually where I'm going to get it, or at least show that I'm actually grateful. And I think that at the end of it, martial arts can be a form of religion, right?
Sure.
But good and bad, right? Because religion has scared people away. Like, that's just hocus pocus or whatever. It doesn't matter. But it's still a journey. You can learn a lot from yourself, I think, and if I want to say judo's crap, if I want to say jiu-jitsu's crap, the responses I'm going to receive is, come try it out first, right? And that's what I encourage people to do. So with that, to close, if somebody came to you and says, maybe they don't know who you are and who you've trained or anything, right? They just, maybe start having that conversation with another young man like you did that got you into judo was I think I want to start learning martial arts.
Okay.
What advice do you have, or how do you approach that?
The one thing I would say is understanding the two words, inform and inspire. Because most people go to a martial art because they want information. They want to be informed, which is a very linear method of, oh, this move does this, I do this, and that works. They typically will get it to the point of where, okay, I've got what I want, now I'm going to get out. And whether the motivation is egotistical or not, the people who are on the path are inspired.
Yeah.
And the word of inspired is in spirit. And that's the basic meaning of it. And that goes back to talking to God.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that's a different approach than most people, but
no, that's good. I like that. Like I said, I'm a word nerd. Like, I got into martial arts. I'm a fighter just because the life that God put me in. And I've asked if that's what got me away from God originally. And I think that's what drives people away from whatever traditional martial arts they do and explore other ones is it's like, it was like, I kind of was telling God or my father, I don't think you're right. I have questions. And he says, okay, go out into the world and experience it. But you'll be back. You'll come home. And I did. I had to come home. I came home very humbly and was like, you were right. Like I saw all these difficulties, all these struggles, and and ultimately, like, that's where it is. It's home, right? And it's home, and I think I look at the two words martial arts. And I've always I'm like, okay, what is martial? I think of martial law, like physics, the science of the movement. Being a kinesiologist, that's always led me to be a little bit better than wherever my belt was or the other students with me, because I was like, I just knew how the body moves, and people would be like, ow, what was that? Body doesn't go that way. I don't know. And also living good kinesthetics, like in judo, I do pretty well, even though I don't know what the hell I'm doing sometimes, just because I'm sensitive to the guy's energy and movement. But then the art is, okay, you and I, we can apply the physics to it a certain way, but we're built differently. And the partner we have is built differently. The situation is different. So the law doesn't, if I understand the law that I'm trying to apply, I can then apply the art to it and make it mine, right?
Right.
Because I've been taught techniques by lots of different coaches, and I've had to modify them for me, and then I've even seen it where I teach it my way, and then another student is like, I discovered it works, and I was like, yeah, that actually does, because your arms are longer, less girthy than mine. The guy you're going to go with is probably not going to have my shoulders. So that's going to work. I don't teach, I think the other day somebody's asking me about Anaconda and Dars. I was like, yeah, I don't rarely teach those because, I just don't have the build. Sure, my arms versus guys with my shoulders, it's a no-go. I told the student who, more advanced student, I said, come here, try to put a Dars on me. Try to put an Anaconda. I'm not even going to try to fight you. Oh yeah, that's really hard. I said, yeah, it's never been part of my game.
Sure.
I can show you them. The guy was almost 7 feet tall. I was like, and very lanky. I was like, these will be money. This would be great for you. And I think that's part of the spirituality of martial arts too, in the connections with God is there's all these. Why are all these different religions? Why are all these different martial arts? Because it's situational, right? One spirituality or one religion might say, don't eat meat. And there might be justified reason for it. But you're living in the Arctic. Yeah. You don't have vegetation.
You don't have vegetation.
Right? Yeah. Or so same thing with a fight, right? It ended up on the ground real fast because you didn't see it coming. He knocked you down.
Yeah.
Now you're on your back.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu is going to be very helpful.
Yes.
But I see you coming, you're puffed up, and now I'm aware, and I'm here. Now my striking has its play.
Yeah.
Or I'm really long and lanky, some sort of Muay Thai or even Taekwondo is going to be way more effective if I'm faster and younger than you too, I think. And I think that we have to start showing respect as religions. The bottom rule of them all, golden rule: love your brother or neighbor, love yourself, and love God. And what does that create? The infinite triangle, one of the strongest shapes in the world. But it's got to be equal. There can be somebody who loves God so much, he'll curse you. You're awful. You're a dog. I had a dude the other day loving my feedback and how it's responding and stuff. And he's like, but do you eat meat? And I was like, well, yeah, occasionally. Oh, you're a dog then. You're a dog. I think he was Islamic or something. But he's like, you're just a dog. You're a filthy dog. Just because I eat meat. I'm like, I said, but I grew up, I'm living in the Pacific Northwest and I'm native. And I'm like, we've been eating it for generations. But we do it in a different way. We honor the animal. There's more to it. But I think that's the same thing is that's why I've had multiple black belts and multiple disciplines come in, is because if I can sit with somebody who's trained in something else and I can see they're in certain particular situations, right? It works. And at the same time as like you've heard is in jiu-jitsu, and I imagine they say it in judo too, there's a counter for a counter for a counter, right? And it's because it's always situational, right?
Yeah.
If we sit in class and I'm like, but what if I do this? Well, but then I would do that. Like that, the endless.
It's a never-ending story. And with that being said, talking about different martial arts, and I've had great opportunities to train with some of the very best martial artists in the world. And do I get along with them all, or do I believe in everything they say? No.
Yeah.
Did a lot of their techniques not work for me? Absolutely. But I was a sponge for the things that did work. So where did I end up after bouncing around from, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? I've done with, Hickson, with Jean-Jacques. I've done Muay Thai with some of the best people in the world. I've done Judo. I've had all these great people, but for me, it came down to going back to your question of a beginner, looking at the difference between a cult and a tribe. Because there are cults out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the cults are monetary based or ego based, but a lot of tribes are not. Yeah. So when you have a commonality with people, it's like, Jose, you love doing judo? I love doing judo. You're a good person? Yeah. I'm a good person. We start finding those similarities, and we do things because we're helping to make a better world.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things I gained going back to Kodokan, Mark said it, was he says that he's like, we want two things in judo. We want to maximize the outcome, minimize the effort is one, but two, we want it mutually beneficial for both of us, the uki and the tori, and so I've started adding that back into my classes and my students, and one thing, and I don't know that you may have very well taught me this, but I did not take it away, was Rondori is neither one winning. We're on the same team, and we're both just trying to catch stuff. And I could easily say that, well, back then when you were teaching me, my ego, I'm trying to win every damn roll, every dang, for the longest time. I mean, even with Chapman, when I was a purple belt, I had won pans, double gold at blue, double gold at purple, won at adult worlds, won at masters worlds, and I thought, because when I got my pans gold, he gave me my purple belt. I thought for sure I was getting the same thing when I got my pans purple medals. Nothing. I went 6 months. I was like, what the heck? And I just asked him, I says, look, I'm not saying I deserve it, but what am I missing? Simple. And he was like, you just got to stop smashing people and start teaching people. You're just winning everything. You're always winning. And I'm like, yeah.
Mutual benefit and welfare.
Yes. And that was very humbling. And I don't think it took very long. Once he said that, I was like, oh, right, okay. But it was hard the first couple of times. Because I'd be on top of some dude, he's suffering. Oh, yeah, okay, this is how you're going to get out of this. I didn't want But I've also, since opening my own school, hitting 6 years now, I've seen how much better it's made me when I do go. I mean, I've still won, I mean, I beat a pretty significant black belt about a year and a half ago at ultra heavy. He had 80 pounds on me, and I beat him, and it was very significant. I won a couple other, and I'm the best guy in my school. And I don't ever get hard rounds. And I just learned, gosh, you don't need those. You really don't. They're good for a good workout. I'd probably be a little thinner if I had to work harder, but now I'm just so embraced in the gentle way. That's why I had to take up judo, because man, just falling down and getting back up works me out. And
absolutely.
And
handicap yourself, Jose.
Yeah, well, I'm already pretty handicapped. I feel like they got a couple big black belts there. Yeah. And but I also, now I'm not trying to win. Yeah. I'm just trying to learn. And so it's been vastly different. But with that, like I'm very appreciative and humble. I've come to realize, I mean, to have somebody like you to be able to sit and do my podcast is pretty awesome, because you've been around, people, that's why I moved to the Portland area, over a decade ago, was because growing up in Idaho, we didn't have a black belt around of any kind, really. I don't think, other than maybe, I think there was a karate guy there. Pacific Northwest has a good, it's kind of a mecca. Yeah. If the weather was better, we'd probably be like LA and San Diego, right?
Sure. There's not a lot to do here. It's raining all the time.
Yeah. So I thank you very much for that, I know we'll stay in touch. Dylan visits with you, and
I train with Dylan probably about once every other month.
Yeah. And I'm he's coaching a couple times a week for me, but for him, I think it's more of a, like, it's just, he's very much a part of the class, and it's inspired me to be a little more part of my class, because I one of my biggest struggles as a human being is I'll sacrifice myself for everybody. Like, I'm always odd man out in my class. I'm like, if it's odd, I'm like, all right, I'm not getting any roles today. I thought when I opened a school, I was like, oh, I'm going to be training so much.
Sure.
Hardly at all.
Sure.
Lots of teaching. I'm still learning and developing, but I'm not getting those hard rounds. And that's, I think, I was like, I needed to join. I almost joined Casey Kate's place. Yeah. To still keep just having a place to grow, but then I was like, no, I need to go get that I need to go do that judo and refine. I don't know that I'll stick with it long enough to get a black belt, but because I'm really like, I want all the words, I want all those little details. I'm now bowing correctly at my school. I've added all the different break falls, and I got a little bit a couple years ago when I started learning Tai Chi, that feeling of being a white belt again. There's something about that I think, my background in motor learning, motor development, I did a graduate class. I taught a graduate class in it, and there's a little bit of science that supports a beginner makes a better teacher. Because they have not forgotten those little idiosyncrasies. Like, you could take a master, he's not always going to be able to teach, because I'm like, how did you do that? Well, just do it. It's, they use the analogy of peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You know, you've made 1 million of them. So you're going to say, yeah, get 2 pieces of bread, put peanut butter on one and jelly on another, and you'll have 2 slices of bread with a jar on each top. And well, that doesn't work. No, you got to open the lid. You know, the little details.
But as you learn more, and this is just judo, as you learn more, you become a student. The higher you get.
Yes.
That's why you're familiar with the 12th degree in judo.
Yeah.
12th degree black belt in judo is a white belt.
I didn't know that part.
Yes.
I mean, I knew they went to 12, but I didn't know. Oh, that's awesome. Because I remember.
It's double the width, but it's a white belt.
Oh.
Because the journey starts
all over again.
Well, you're not. Yeah. Yes, you have. You know, it's kind of like saying black belt. Well, black belt to me just means, oh, you have a basic foundation, and good for you. But as you've said, the commercialism of black belts and everything, I run into people all the time who are, I'm a black belt in this.
Yeah. Well, I tell some of my white belts, I'm like, you can, within a year or two, you can become a black belt in specific techniques. You can have the best arm bar if that's all you work on. You have the best. I says, a black belt for me is you've seen it all. You're not a master of it all. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think one of the analogies in jiu-jitsu they talk about is like when you get to a black belt, you start over. Mm-hmm. And I started at somewhere. I was a brown belt the longest, I think, other than my white belt career, because that was really long. But I went over fine-tooth comb of everything to what am I missing and that sort of thing. But I really love getting back to judo, and if I ever do get my black belt there, then I'd probably be like, all right, what's next? I like, you know, only because I really believe we're on this earth for 2 reasons: to learn and learn to love, or just love. Like, that's it. You gotta love something, whether it's ideally should be yourself, should be God and the person next to you, but also stuff, love, you know, have a passion. The Creator created us to create. Mm-hmm. So you have to create something. So become that artist, a martial artist. Maybe you're good with a voice. I have a knack for writing, and that's something recently that I finally given into, because I was told years ago I should be a writer. Mm-hmm. My English teacher in college was like, what are you doing? Don't get into science stuff. Like, you're good at writing. Mm-hmm. I'm like, but there's no money. I don't want to be an English teacher. Yeah. And I finally given into. I'm like, all right. I got all these journals of stuff, and one of the things I've always been good at is like when I would leave practice, I would just dictate notes, journal. Like, mm-hmm. Oh man, you know. And I encourage people to do that. But so now I'm just dumping all this stuff into books and things. But I think we're all meant to create something. You know, you created children that created children. Like that's really experiencing. I can't imagine the joy I'm thinking about. I've got one 18-year-old daughter who just started college and graduated. So hopefully I won't have any grandchildren from her anytime soon. But my 2 little ones that I'm actually getting to raise, because I was not a good father. Initially, when I had my first child, I wasn't ready to be a father. I didn't know how. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a dad. I had no clue. Sure. And chose to be a fighter, move out here. Mm-hmm. And Mom, and I was a broke-ass fighter. So I agreed to sign over my rights so I wouldn't have to pay child support, being told that I would still be a part of my daughter's life. Mm-hmm. That lasted for a couple months. And I have not really gotten to see her since. Right. And so I sacrificed a lot to be a fighter. And when I had my last daughter, I was like, you know, she turned 7. I was like, I'm done. My wife at the time was like, no, you shouldn't quit. I want to. And I was like, no, I'm done. I said, I already messed it up once. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't. Plenty of guys out there that have done it, and I don't know how. Not me. I can't be a good fighter and a good dad. One's going to get sacrificed, as you know. Trying to be a good coach and a good competitor is also very tough. It's kind of like that, right? You got to pick some points. Yeah. And I just wasn't willing to do that. And I think that I'm looking forward to one day. To bring it all back, martial arts is probably, because I hate push-ups, I hate sit-ups, I hate running, I hate lifting weights. but I love doing martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the only saving grace that's going to keep me fit enough to see them one day.
Mm-hmm.
From my youngest children's, because they're gonna hit 18 when I'm hitting 60.
Mm-hmm.
And my little boy already says he's gonna kick my ass.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, bring it, boy. Like my goal is that I will have either raised him right enough that by the time he can, he won't.
Mm-hmm.
Or if he's not quite there, I can still hang with him. I'll have old man tricks. I got lots of little pressure points and stuff. But yeah. So.
Well, one of the things I always raised, because I've got 3 kids and 7 grandkids, and I get the question to me a lot because of my background of like, oh, you must train everybody and inspire everyone. And I'm sure you get a lot of the same questions. Yeah. My mantra has been the same the whole time. Yeah. I don't care what you do, just do something. Find a passion.
Yeah.
And that means most likely you're going to have to try a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Because we don't necessarily know what we want. Society pushes us to be so focused that, it's admirable. I knew I wanted to be the Olympian by the time I was 4. You know what? To me, that's very unrealistic. Yeah. Most likely that's somebody vicariously living through that person.
Sure.
You have to try different things to find out what you don't want.
Yeah.
And then you find out what you do want.
Well, both my children train jiu-jitsu. My little girl has a good knack for Muay Thai. I think eventually I think there's potential. But neither one did I make them do it.
Mm-hmm.
They both have grown up into it. And my boy is not even 5 yet. He turns 5 in January. And I told myself I was not even going to have him try it until he was 5.
Mm-hmm.
3.5, he's like, Daddy, I want to go. I want to do it. Okay. Yeah. So he does it a couple times a week. Sometimes more than that because he wants to, but I don't make him do it. They want to, and I feel like at the end of the day, as long as there's no pressure and it's fun for them, they'll continue. And that's kind of what I've emphasized. When I first opened the school, it was very competitive, all about my competition. And I'm like, I wasn't ready to retire from competition, so I'm going to live vicariously through my students.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had my awakening, and I was like, this is not what it's about. I want my students leaving this school better than they came in.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's as a martial artist or as a human being willing to stand up for themselves or their neighbor. And I lost some students when I did that transition because I had played people there because, they wanted to win their gold medals and all that stuff too. And I think eventually they'll kind of find their way back. But, I think you and a few other coaches in my life inspired me to be how important it is. Mm-hmm. Like, because we can sit with you and have a discussion that you can apply the martial arts philosophy to it, but it's not about that, right? You see the human being, and I think that's very important. So thank you very much.
No, I believe in that. And let me just add on to this. That as a coach, and I think you found yourself being a coach is much more encompassing than just teaching techniques.
Yeah.
You end up being a father figure sometimes, a confidant, a medic. I mean, you fill in so many different roles that you don't really feel in the beginning. It's like, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
And it can consume you and take away from your personal life.
Well, and I've had students come to me and I tell them, they'll ask me, marriage stuff. And I'm like, guys, I'm on my 3rd marriage. I said, I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, not in life.
Sure.
But, unfortunately, I have to remind myself too. I was like, I'm kind of a good coach because I've made lots of mistakes, and not because I've been very successful, but because of my successes or because of all my failures. And so they're kind of building blocks. That one fight that you cornered me, where I got knocked out cold.
Mm-hmm.
That is still to this day one of my best lessons. When I'm teaching students how to shoot a double leg and a rock over step. Hands up! Hands up! You don't understand. You want to Google coach on YouTube. You're going to see. And every once in a while they find it, boy. I think it was the record of the state for a minute there. And somebody's beat me since, but man, but it was humbling because still this day, I believe 9 times out of 10, I would have crushed that guy.
Sure.
But at that, I went in with an ego, and I didn't have my hands up. And then I also tell him there's one time where you could tell him yelling at me, right hand up, Jose, right hand up, and I got kicked in the head. It was luckily at practice, but I got dropped.
Yeah.
And so that's that part of it. So yeah, I mean, but I realize now I'm really just, as much as I'm teaching my students, I'm learning from them. So that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
When you start looking at, you start feeling the boredom as an instructor of like, okay, I'm teaching a sit-up sweep again, or I'm teaching this choke again.